world. This is the Fan and Fanatic Podcast. I'm Parker Grelecki, aka the Fan and Fanatic, and with me as always is my broadcast partner,
Dad,
aka Ryan Grelecki. I've got a passion for all things sports. So, on the Fan and Fanatic Podcast, we'll talk to anyone and everyone from all over the world of sports who will sit still long enough to answer my questions.
that's right. Now, as a result of complications from severe brain damage at birth, unfortunately, Parker will never be able to physically play sports, but that cannot and has never stopped him from loving everything about sports and dreaming of a career in broadcasting. So each of our guests graciously gives of their time on this podcast to invest in Parker's dream and to help him be part of the sports world he loves so dearly.
Now, let's play ball! Welcome back, Fanatic Addicts. I'm super excited about my guest today because he is an all-around cool dude. Some of y'all Auburn fans might recognize his voice from Jordan-Hare Stadium because he's the public address announcer, Mr. Ric Smith. So, Mr. Smith, why don't you tell everyone who you are, where you're from, and your connection to the world of sports?
All right. My name is Ric Smith, and thank you very much for having me on the show. This is great. As you said, I'm the stadium announcer at Jordan-Hare, and I have done that since 2006. And I also teach at Auburn. I teach in the School of Communication and Journalism, and I've done that since the fall of 1992. So I've been teaching for a few years now.
Speaking of 2006, I watched your interview with the Iron Bowl hour that you did. You know, with you remember the Lockamy brothers, Will and Reed.
Oh, I do.
And you mentioned
that
your first game was against Washington State, and Washington State had a lineman by the name of Do you remember his name? Because I know who it is, but I want to see if you remember.
Potuatoa.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then the best bit about that interview was when they did the name game. And just for the record, it took me a long time to pronounce Apu Nahasapim Pedalon myself.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance for that one. That was a fun show, though. In fact, that's the first time I had met those guys, and we've since become friends, and we still keep in touch.
Mm-hmm. Do they still do that? Do they still do the Iron Bowl hour? Because I know that they had Tammy Bullard on. You probably don't know who Tammy Bullard is, but you might recognize her from the Paul Feinbaum show. You know who Paul Feinbaum is?
I do know Paul, and met Tammy too. Actually,
she's probably the biggest Auburn
through
fan.
Them. So yeah, I had a chance to meet her.
She's probably the biggest dang Auburn fan on the planet.
Yeah, she certainly was.
And anyways, so back to Rapati Patuatoa. So that leads me to a question. Out of all the names that you've learned to pronounce, which one was the hardest to pronounce? Which one was the hardest to pronounce? Like, took you a long time to figure out how to pronounce it correctly?
You know, there are always a few of those, and people ask about Auburn names that may be tough. But the thing about those is I'm familiar with them because those are names I'm announcing week after week. So once I get it down, it's fine. But with a visiting team, I'm only going to see them that one time. So they can be a little tricky. But the way to work through that is I make sure to talk with the sports information director from the visiting team before the game, and I can hear that person say it. So I'll have a phonetic spelling that comes in the media kit that I get, and that's very helpful. But what I really need is to hear it. And then once I hear it and can say it, and then I phonetically spell it for myself on my spotting chart, things are okay for the most part. It's just a matter of repetition and being comfortable with it.
Cool. There's actually another story, but I'll save it off the air. I'll save it for off the air because it's not related to you in any way. It's related to another one. It's related to another one of the. Do you mind if I know it's supposed to be about you, but do you mind if I go ahead and tell it since I already brought it up?
No, I'm curious. I want to know what this is.
So you know who Jim Jackson is, right? The voice of the Auburn University Marching Band. It's funny. I didn't know that was his name. I actually figured it out because they had just added the closed captioning to Jordan-Hare Stadium. So during one of the halftime shows, I had the closed captioning up on the website, and it was Jim Jackson. And I believe a few weeks after that, we ran into each other at the Tiger Tailgate show, and I gave you two podcast cards, one for you and one for Mr. Jackson. Did Mr. Jackson receive the card by any chance?
He did receive the card. I made sure that I gave it to him.
And then another question. Another question. I know. I'm not trying to. Okay, look. I am happy to be here. I mean, I am happy that you're. I'm sorry. I know. So another question.
Parker's a little excited about this interview.
So
I am too. I really am. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, I'm going to tell a quick story and then I'll tie in my question to you. So a few interviews ago, we interviewed the voice of the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, and I asked him if radio announcers get like connected with one another? And he said it's kind of like a fraternity, if you will. So my question to you is, do you get connected with like other PA announcers, like, I don't know, Brock Whitmire at Georgia or Tony Giles at Alabama or any of those guys?
Not really. It's a little different in what I do because the radio guys travel. So they have a chance to go to the visiting stadiums and of course meet the radio people when they do that. In my world, in public address, that doesn't happen very often. I have met a few guys along the way. If they happen to come to Jordan-Hare and introduce themselves, or if I happen to travel to another stadium, I'll make a point of doing that. And there's a class that I teach, news and sports announcing at Auburn, and I'll reach out to them occasionally to have someone as a guest in the class. But it's a little different. I think we have a fraternity in the sense that we share our experiences and we're always open to each other, but we don't know each other in the same way that the radio guys tend to.
I assume marching band announcing is a fraternity because, like, when the marching bands travel, what they'll do is like they'll bring their guy that announces their like the you know what I mean, like what I'm saying, like. Have you seen, like when like the visiting team bands perform at these games, they have the guy who announces the band at the home games announce the band at the stadium? Like, I don't know. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, absolutely. They do. Yeah, because they do travel and they have a chance to meet each other. Now, one announcer I do know very well from another school is Robert Levin, who's the band announcer for Alabama, because Robert also works with us in Hoover for the SEC baseball tournament. He's one of the public address announcers there. So that's how I've gotten to know him. So recently I've seen Robert twice. We saw each other in Jordan-Hare for the Alabama game, but we also saw each other in Atlanta last weekend when we did the SEC championship game.
I assume, knowing Robert, you also know Tony Giles, right? The voice of the voice of Bryant-Denny Stadium.
He is. We've never met. In fact, we've never met. We've never had a chance to talk with each other. I'd love to. I guess I need to reach out to him one day. I'd love to have a chance to talk to him, but we never have.
I'm so sorry. I'm sounding like I'm not. Oh no. For the record, I am happy to have you here. The thing with me is I'm a one-track mind, meaning like if something is on my mind, I have to say it, or else it just looms in my mind like, oh my goodness.
Oh, that's fine. I'm enjoying the conversation. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I will say, I did attend my very first Auburn volleyball game in a long time. Mm-hmm. And if I remember correctly, I got intel from one Dana Marquez that you remember back in 2016, Arkansas State, my birthday, where I was chauffeured So, and
I do remember that day.
And one of our stops, if you will, was the locker room where there was a guy by the name of Dana Marquez who pretended to be Coach Gus Malzahn. And I asked him, do you know the name of the... Okay. At the time, I wasn't very smart with words. I thought public address was pre-game announcer. So I said, do you know the name of the pre-game announcer for volleyball? And he said, Kevin Fuhr. So my grandfather and I went to the senior day game against Arkansas, and the guy who was announcing the game did not sound like Mr. Kevin Fuhr. So my question to you is, did Kevin Fuhr retire from old age, or what's up?
You mean from volleyball?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm not sure who they have announcing volleyball now.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like there's an opening, Parker.
Yeah, there you go.
Parker, I want to know how do you that class, Parker? You need to go take this class. So can we get into Ric's class before you enroll at Auburn? Maybe just go audit it. I don't know. That's sounds like an amazing class to go take, Parker.
Mm-hmm. So back to your career. You said you were teaching.
Right. Yeah, I teach in communication and journalism.
Mm-hmm.
In that class, that news and sports announcing class. How to get into that? Well, the news and sports announcing class is pretty much what the title says it is. It looks at an announcing styles for news and also announcing styles for sports. And what the class is really about is there's some lecture and that type of thing in the class, but it's really about gaining experience in announcing situations. So the class builds as we go along, and the assignments get a little more stressful as we go along, but it's gaining that real world experience. And one of the things I tell students about announcing is that everything we do in the classroom is very important, and it's essential to building that base to announcing. But you really don't understand the announcing until you do it. You actually have to be in front of a microphone. It's like swimming, studying swimming in the various ways you may do that, studying the history of swimming and swimming in the Olympics and buoyancy and all of those things that tie into swimming are important. But you don't understand swimming until you're in the water. And with announcing, it's the same thing. So one idea behind this class is to put the students in the water, in a sense. So back to how this happened, I had done some teaching in smaller ways before coming to Auburn, just some various projects that I had been involved in, but an opportunity arose to come teach. And it sounded like a great opportunity that I wanted to try. And I did, and absolutely fell in love with it, even more than I thought I would. And that was 32 years ago. This is my 32nd year of teaching at Auburn.
Back to the first question I asked you. So out of all the names that you've learned to pronounce as a public address announcer, which one was which one is / was the hardest name that you like to pronounce?
Well, that first one with my good friend Rapati probably was, just in the sense that was my first game, and there was a certain amount of excitement going into the game. People ask if I was nervous. I don't like to say I was nervous. I like to say I was excited, but there was excitement going into that game. And I wanted to make sure that I got it right. I mean, I always do. That's essential to get it right. You have to get names right. But it was the first game. Everyone in the stands knew it was my first game. I followed Carl Stevens, who had been the Auburn announcer for 27 years, the legendary Carl Stevens, who very much was a legend.
In your interview with the Lockamy brothers, Carl Stevens.
Yeah, Carl is very much my announcing hero, and to be able to follow him was a wonderful honor. But everybody was listening because Carl had been that voice for all of those years, and that particular night I was the new guy, so there was a certain amount of high expectation there, both for the fans and for myself as well.
So is Carl Stevens, is he still walking the earth, or did he go to the big broadcast booth in the sky?
Carl passed away a few years ago. I still miss him. I always enjoy visiting with Carl.
Mm-hmm. So anyways, how did you get to be the public address announcer? How did you get the PA job at Auburn? The public address announcer job at Auburn?
It's a long story that I'll try to not make too long, so it doesn't drag on and on. But it comes down to this idea that whatever you do first, if you do it well and you're a pleasant person to get along with, it leads to another thing that leads to another thing. So where I first got involved with announcing was when I was a student at Auburn. I worked with WEGL, the campus radio station. So that for me, that was absolutely, that was the first time I was behind a microphone, and was absolutely scared to death too. But like I said, one thing leads to another. So I forget exactly what year this was, but this was after I had graduated. Was married. In fact, I'd been married for a few years. In fact, I got married while I was at Auburn, and was working. I had gone back to Auburn and was teaching. But my wife Carol and I live in Opelika, which is a town right next to Auburn. Mm-hmm. And the person who had been announcing Opelika High School football, who had been the PA guy for Opelika High. I'd known him for years, and he was retiring, and he knew that I had worked in radio and had done a number of announcing things over the years, and asked if I would be interested. And I thought, wow, that sounds like a great idea. Sounds like a lot of fun. So I did that for a number of years. And that led to a conversation with Jeremy Roberts, who at the time was doing marketing for baseball. JR now directs operations at Auburn, but at the time he was doing marketing for baseball. And he and I had met, and it kind of a roundabout way, it came up in a conversation that I was doing PA for Opelika. And he said, we need somebody on the announcing team for baseball, because baseball has about 33, 35 home games each year. So there's more than one person that does it. He said, would you be interested in doing, 10 games or so? And I thought, sure, that sounds great. So I started doing Auburn baseball, and then that expanded over the years. And then one day I got a call, and he said, you can't tell anybody this, but Carl is retiring, and we want to talk to you about being stadium announcer for football. So people ask me, they say, like this, how did you get the job? Did you audition? And there's a line that I use where I say every day is an audition, because you never know who's watching and you never know who's listening. So I didn't audition in the traditional way, but I auditioned one Auburn baseball game at a time for 5 years. And so he and others involved in this process knew what I sounded like and how I conducted myself, and how I interacted with the fans and with coworkers, and that's what led to the opportunity.
Can I ask you a stupid question? So not last
Sure.
A-Day, but the A-Day before that, there was another guy that was that was announcing, and he was that like another guy that was announcing the game, or like the sideline host, if you will. Who was that?
Oh, his name escapes me, because that was actually someone who was connected with athletics when Coach Harsin was here, and they wanted to do something from the field to kind of connect the fans in another way. So it was really interesting the way they did it. I thought it went quite well, but that was just for A-Day. And that was kind of the idea of making A-Day a little different and taking that approach in the sense of bringing fans onto the field. So that's what that was all about.
But you know what I'm talking about, right? Because I heard, other than you, I believe it was A-Day 2022, not this A-Day, but the last A-Day.
Right.
Is that the guy you're referring? That there was a second voice heard over the PA, over the loudspeaker. Was that the guy that you're referring to?
Yeah, that's it. They did it that year and also the year before. So they actually did that 2 years at A-Day.
So have you heard that Auburn's finally replacing that old ugly eyesore they call a scoreboard on the north end zone?
That's what they say. I'm not sure how soon that's going to happen. Maybe by next football season. I don't know, but it's definitely in the conversation now.
Which makes me wonder: do they have they said where they're going to donate the scoreboard to, or are they just going to toss it out?
I don't know, but I would love to have it. Wouldn't that be cool to have that in your backyard?
I was gonna say.
I think that's where Parker was headed.
Because if the AU athletic department is looking for someone to take the old scoreboard, I'll gladly take it. Maybe
that would be so cool.
Get one of those little things, those little tripod things with the little holders at the end, just clip it onto the the score operator thing, and then put the scoreboard on the actual you know what I mean, mount it on the actual thing that operates the scoreboard, and then bang. Have my own little desk scoreboard, if you will.
Yeah, you need to start working on that. Although it may be a little bigger than you think it is.
Yeah, I was going to say, right. It looks small till it's in the backyard.
That's right. When you strap that onto the roof of your car to drive it back home, it's going to be bigger than you think.
So what sports do you do announcing for?
I announce football at Auburn, and also the SEC Football Championship. And I also announce the SEC baseball tournament in Hoover.
Wait, hold on. You announced the Auburn. I mean, you announced the SEC football championship game. You are the public address announcer.
Yes.
Oh, by the way,
I've done that since 2007 was the first year that I did that. So yeah, I was there. for
Oh,
the
by the way,
Alabama-Georgia game.
I want to do my impression of you on the air, if you don't mind.
Okay, no,
the
go
correct
ahead.
Jordan-Hare Stadium time is 6:49.
I think you got it.
Oh, and by the way,
that's it.
that tribute to CBS, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, that was good. I wish I could claim credit for that. That was
I'm gonna miss
athletics marketing, Matt Amos, who I work with. But yeah, that was really neat to do that for them. They deserved it.
I'm gonna miss Brad and Gary and Jenny.
Yeah, they do a good job. I know, there's some controversy with CBS and their calls sometimes, but that's true for any team that
I've
covers.
Heard from a lot of Bama fans that I've heard a lot of negativity about Gary Danielson from Bama fans. I'm going to tell another quick story. So back in 2022, I think it was. Yeah. I went to the Alabama Texas A&M game in Tuscaloosa with my my grandfather, my grandmother, and my brother. And I'm going to give a shout out to one of the local businesses there, the Trunk. So I was perusing their buttons. You know what a button is, like a little pin. Mm-hmm. And one of them said, "Shut up, Gary." So I asked the clerk what that was all about, and she said that, "Oh, it's just because Gary Danielson doesn't say anything nice about Alabama."
Well, see, what Auburn people say is Gary Danielson always said good things about Alabama. That's all he ever talked about. You would hear some Auburn people say that. But yeah, I really thought those guys did a good job. I always appreciated what they had to say and appreciated their insight. But I guess that's just the way the world is, that announcers are going to be criticized about their announcing. And I think analysts probably get it a little more than the play-by-play guys do, since they're giving a little more of an opinion in what they do. But yeah, I thought those guys did a good job. I'll miss them. And of course, with ESPN, they'll do a terrific job. So, their coverage is going to be awesome.
Dad, Mr. Smith, I think my father has a question. Yes, Father?
I've got a bunch of questions I'm writing down. I'm just waiting for the chance to get in there. So I appreciate that. I don't want to jump around too much, but I want to go back to the class a little bit though, Parker. Mm-hmm. Because Rick, what you mentioned is, giving these students an opportunity to actually, like you said, jump in the water. How do you do that? Where do you find the opportunities to give a class full of students a chance to, announce or call games or whatever it is?
Well, I'm really creating lab type opportunities. So one of the things I encourage them to do is get involved as much as they can. And a lot of our students are working at WEGL and also at Eagle Eye Television. We have a lot of students who are involved in athletics, but one of the assignments is I set up a scenario where they're doing a live shot. So, you'll see a news reporter live at the scene. So I'll give them a scenario where they're writing the story and they're doing a live shot, in the sense that I give them a countdown and they have one shot to get it right, just as if it were live. So that's one. Another one we do is a PA exercise. So we actually go into Jordan-Hare and they sit in my chair and read some of the announcements that awesome. I read. Now, in that setting, we're not able to turn on the system, because if we did, you could hear it throughout Auburn. It's so loud. I would love to be able to do that. But it's amazing how many students tell me, they say, just sitting here looking at the seats, even though there's no one in the seats, and even though the microphone is not on and we're doing the assignment here, they say it's amazing how stressful this is.
Wow.
And then again, it's that live type setting in the sense of you have one chance. There are no do-overs. And that's what kind of ratchets up the tension. But they do great. And, they start out being nervous like we all do. That's just part of it. And you can see they get a little better and a little better and a little better. And again, it's like swimming. You get in the water and you get a little better and a little better as you go along. And that's what I'm trying to recreate in the way we go about that class.
That's really cool.
So, Mr. Smith, sir, you mentioned that you announced the SEC championship game. Mm-hmm. Did you by any chance announce the 2017, 2013, and 2010 and 2004 SEC championship games? And the reason why I named those four in particular was because those were Auburn's last four appearances in said SEC championship game. Right.
I did not do 2004. I had not begun announcing Auburn football at that point, or the SEC championship game by that point. But I did announce the 2010 game, and the 13 game, and also the 17 game. So, yes. I announced those three.
I was at the 2013 game, That was a royal butt whooping, wasn't it?
Auburn played a good game that day.
I'm gonna give props to Missouri and Gary Pinkel because, like, do you remember when Missouri? Do you remember Missouri's first year in the SEC? 1 year before that, like they were like what 4-8, and then they went to 11-1. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was amazing the turnaround. And if you remember, they were actually in the championship game 2 years in a row because
Yeah, because then
Auburn
they played Alabama
Missouri
the
in
next year.
2013, and then Alabama, Alabama in 14.
So I have a question. But actually, no, I'm going to make a statement. And then I'm going to tell a quick story, and then I'm going to ask my next question. So I'm a neutral fan, and here's why. I don't suppose you know who LeBron James is, do you?
I do know LeBron James.
Do you know?
Well, I know who he is. I don't know him, but yes.
So you know of him. You just don't know him personally. But anyways, so I was at a point in my life where I absolutely hated LeBron, which was probably because if you remember a few seasons ago in the playoffs, his Cavaliers busted out the brooms against the Hawks, swept him 4-0 or 4-0 or whatever. But anyways,
right.
So ever since then, I've been a little bitter towards LeBron. So then a few years after that, I did an event with the Atlanta Hawks, and where I got to interview a lot of the players. It was for their fan day, if you will, the final regular season game, and this was all before that big State Farm Arena renovation. But anyway, okay, sorry, I'm just. Yeah, sorry, the tiny details aren't important. Anyways, my point is, during one of the interviews, I'd look into the camera and I said, shout out to every NBA player, even you, LeBron, even though I've hated you for my whole life. So then the Hawks grabbed that tweet, tweeted it to LeBron, and my father told me they had done this, and I was demoralized. So my father tweets LeBron and, make sure everything's all right. And ever since then, I've been a neutral fan, which makes me wonder. I know that you are the Auburn football public address announcer. Do you have to show Auburn bias, or does the athletics department prefer you to be neutral?
That's a great question. And I'm asked that question a lot by different people. The Auburn approach to public address announcing is to be neutral. And as far as I know, it always has been. I know that was true for Carl in all of the years that he was the announcer, and I assume it was true before that. And, I learned to announce by listening to Carl, since I actually grew up as an Auburn fan as a kid. I went to school at Auburn. And so to me, I've always heard it done that way. So to me, the neutral approach is the way that it's done. Now, having said that, there are a lot of schools who do it another way, where the public address guy is more of a cheerleader. And that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Each school has to do what's right for that school.
Mr.
But for
Smith,
Auburn, the approach is to be neutral. And so, yes, that's the approach that I take. Auburn expects that, but also expect it of myself.
Can I show you something right quick here? So my friend Mark Aston, so we went to his house on Friday, and he had a bunch of old scripts lying around, and I put them in this handy dandy little binder here, and I wanted to show you if you don't mind. Can you see that?
I can see that. Yeah, that's cool. I actually talked to him the other day. We talked on the phone just a couple of days ago, and he told me that you were come to visit.
Which leads me to another question. I'm sure you're aware that the Auburn Football Illustrated has gone completely digital. There's no physical copies available in Jordan-Hare, but they've done. And what they've done is they've done they've done roster cards, if you will. Do you get a roster card with Auburn on one side, opponent on the other, or is it one? Or do you get a different sheet, or is every team's roster, or are both teams' roster on a different sheet of paper? What I'm saying
it's the same roster card that you're talking about. I pick up one of those too, and we'll use it during the game. And I also use the game notes. A team will put their game day notes on their website, and I'll use those. I'll use that information too.
I'm not trying to be greedy, but if you by any chance if you happen to have any old roster cards that you have lying around from previous games that you've done, I'll be happy to take them off your hands for you. Because the thing with those little scripts, go ahead and then
I don't keep that stuff. Okay, I don't keep that stuff, but I think what I have to look. once we're done, but I think I still have my spotting cards from the Auburn Alabama game. I think I've kept those, and I may have what I put together for the Georgia Alabama SEC championship game too. So let me check if I have any of that.
Sorry,
Sort of thing still on the house. I'll send it to you.
I'm not trying to sound greedy or anything, because like the thing with Mark is how I got my how that binder became so full is that was all of Mark's scripts from the Auburn Sports Network, because he does the voiceover. So
right.
And he said that what he's done with what he does with the scripts is like after he uses them, he tosses them in the old trash can. And I said, Mark, I'll gladly take your scripts off your hands from now on. Okay, sorry, I'm starting to sound greedy. But anyways, so do you have a spotter, or do you do all the spotting by yourself?
Oh no, I definitely have a spotter. His name is Eric Canada. And
I think you mentioned him in the interview too.
Mm-hmm. And you met Eric. Remember when I saw you outside of the tailgate show? Eric was with me when you came by.
Because I think what I had said was the Eric Canada, and then I looked to my grandfather and I said, why does that name sound so familiar? So now that you tell me, I'm like, holy moly, small world. I mean, crazy.
Yeah, it is. And it is very much a team effort. I would be lost without it, Eric. I mean, I like to say that he does the thinking and I do the talking, because there's just so much information that he's feeding me along the way. And he is so good at what he does. And we've known each other forever. We were friends long before we started this announcing gig. So we spend a lot of time together. Well, all year round, but especially in the fall, we spend a tremendous amount of time together. So it's terrific having him there, not just because we enjoy being together, but I depend on him so much in calling a game.
So I assume that like the public address announcers for the marching bands do they like I assume they sit in the press box to watch the game until they have to announce the marching band at halftime.
I don't know. I guess it depends on the announcer and where they want. I know sometimes they'll stay down on the field until it's time to come up, or maybe they'll hang out with their radio crew, and then they come into the press box, yes, when it's actually time to announce both pregame and halftime.
So announcing for the SEC championship, you obviously get acquainted with these marching band announcers. I'm so sorry. Oh no, I really got to stop asking people for guests on the air, because it comes across like I don't want to talk to the actual person that I'm talking to. But honestly, Rick, I'm really interested in your story, man. But I just if I had a nickel for every time I ask one of our guests on air about more guests.
No, but see, that's cool, because that's part of this universe that we're in, because all announcers are interested in what other announcers are doing. And when we do have a chance to meet each other, it's just fascinating to sit around and talk, share stories and talk about people we know in common and all of those things. So this is great for me.
So Stan White, I know he stepped away from the microphone this year. Is he like retired, or is he like employed somewhere else now?
Well, I mean, Stan has his career outside of announcing, but he had been the analyst on radio for 22 years.
I believe he took over for one. I believe he took over for one Mr. Charlie Trotman, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's right.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm sorry,
Stan has children, and he wanted to be able to spend more time with them. His kids playing football and different things. So Stan wanted more time to be a dad, and that's what he's doing. You want me to tell you an interesting Stan White story?
Sure.
Stan was a student of mine.
For real?
So yeah. So in 1993, the 11-0 season, Stan was in
11-0.
That's it. Stan was in my class, and it was the Friday before the Iron Bowl. And back then, the Iron Bowl was played the Saturday before Thanksgiving. Now it's always the Saturday after, but back then,
because then they have Cupcake before. Saturday, right?
That's right. So back then there was no Cupcake Saturday. That was the Iron Bowl, and the Friday before that game, we had class. And Stan was a great student. He was always in class. we go to class that day. I think the class was 9:00 in the morning, if I remember correctly. And Stan wasn't there. And, that was probably the first class that he was going to miss. And I didn't think that much about it. I thought, Iron Bowl is the next day. He's got a million things going on. There was just this crazy amount of intensity surrounding that game. Tailgaters are all over campus already. There are people setting up tents. There are RVs everywhere. It was just crazy. It had been that way all week long. So we start class. About 10 or 15 minutes into class, Stan walks in. I look at him and I said, he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry I'm late." I said, no, that's fine. Don't worry about it. I said, I honestly didn't think you were going to be able to make it today. And he said, he said, "I left the dorm." That's when they all lived in Sewell Hall. He said, "I left the dorm about an hour ago." He said, "It took me that long to get from Sewell over to Tishner Hall where we were." He said, "I kept walking by all these tailgates and people kept stopping me wanting to talk." He said, "I promise I'm trying to get to class." But he made it. And he was there. And then, if you remember, he got hurt in the game.
Oh.
And so after Thanksgiving, when we come back, he was in class again. He was always in class, always ready to go. So Stan's a great guy and was a great student. But I love telling that story about him actually making it to class the Friday before the Iron Bowl. He was determined to get there, so he finally made his way across campus.
Can I tell you a cool story? Do you remember the Amazons of 1972?
Mm-hmm. Do you know who the quarterback was?
I believe it was Terry Beasley, right?
Terry wasn't the quarterback.
Oh, no.
Randy Wall was the quarterback.
It was Pat Sullivan. I'm such an idiot. I'm such an nincompoop. I already
embarrassed.
No,
it was the Amazons were. No, the Amazons was the year that team was the year after Pat Sullivan graduated, and that's one reason they were amazing, because nobody really expected them to do anything. But Randy Wall was the quarterback of that team, and he lives right over there. So he's my across the street neighbor.
And the reason why I bring that up is, you remember Terry Henley from that team? We're going to beat the da-da-da out of Alabama.
I do.
I actually got to interview Mr. Henley.
Yeah, I do remember that.
It just so happens that my grandfather.
I saw that.
I think you met. I think you met him like that when I came to the Tiger Tailgate show that one time, because he was chaperoning me, if you will, and I because at one point I was trying to run back because I forgot there was something else that came to my mind that I forgot to tell you. So I was sprinting as fast as my little legs could carry me. And my grandfather was trying to pull me back, like, don't do it. So I listened, But anyways, so you remember a few weeks ago when they had that book signing, about that, of the book about the 1972 team. So Terry Henley was there, and it just so happens that he and my grandfather were business partners over at Palomar Insurance. Anywho.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So and then I have a very deep question to ask you. Are you returning to the microphone next season for Auburn football?
I am. I'll be back.
Is that like top secret information, or am I allowed to tell everyone?
No, it's not. It's not a secret. I am honored to be in this position and hope it continues for a long, long time.
So what is the fair? So can I tell you something? Can I tell you a statement that I've made a few times? So head coach Bruce Pearl of the basketball team. I know he didn't go to Auburn, but he lives in Auburn, man, and he's gonna die in Auburn, man. Like when he retires, they're gonna build that man a friggin' statue.
He's something, isn't he? Oh my goodness, all that he has done for Auburn basketball and the university as a whole, just as an ambassador. Yeah, he is something else. He's great.
And the funny thing is, I actually met Bruce at the reason why I know Bruce is I ran into him at BurgerFi one time. Like, how crazy is that? You run into the basketball coach of a university at a local burger joint. Well,
see, that's one of the things that's so great about Auburn, being a small town. You just never know who you're going to bump into. So, those guys go out and eat hamburgers like everybody else does, and you never know who you're going to see.
What's funny about it, though, it was like his first season. No, it was his first season. Yeah. So nobody was really like he walked in and nobody really knew who he was yet. but Parker did. And so like he zoned in on him. And then later that week, we saw him at a volleyball game.
I believe Auburn was playing Tennessee. Auburn was playing Tennessee, and Auburn won the match 3 sets to 2. I think.
Inconsequential details. And so he comes in, he's with a whole bunch of like recruits and their parents. And so he sits off on one side, Parker sees him. So Parker runs over there. And again, this was probably, I don't know, Parker was probably, 8, 9 years old. So still a little, toe-headed, curly hair boy. And he runs up and just jumps in Bruce's lap. He's like, Coach Pearl. And Bruce is like, hey, Parker. And so you could see the look on all these recruits' parents' faces. We're like, this is where my boy is going to play basketball.
Yeah.
And so fast forward to they have that run to the championship game. And I'm like, Parker, this is your recruiting class. These are the guys you brought in
so
at that volleyball game.
So you mean to tell me Cole Blackstock could have been one of the guys? Like, you remember Cole Blackstock, right? You mean to tell me that Cole Blackstock could have been one of those guys at like with coach, like in the entourage of Bruce Pearl?
You never know. And little things like that are huge. And it shows, what Auburn is, but it also shows who he is and who the fans are. And that's essential to what the Auburn family is all about.
So what is your favorite part of your job, Mr. Smith?
It's all good. I mean, game day is special. It's really hard to describe, but, so many people describe the game day experience, and it's Auburn people, but it's amazing to me how many people I meet from other schools who will comment on the Auburn game day experience and how impressive it is. And for me, it's really a cool thing to be a part of it. And I'm really just a small part. I mean, what I do is noticed because I'm loud because of the speakers. I do the speaking so people hear me. But really, I'm just one small part of a great team. So, there's Eric, my spotter who talked about, Jason Harbison, who does PA for baseball, is part of our team. Richard Stevens, who is Carl Stevens' son, is a scoreboard operator. I mentioned Matt Amos, who is the marketing director. So he's writing the script that I'm reading and doing. He's sort of the producer of the show in a sense of all that you're seeing on the video board. The War Eagle Productions team, all of the marketing team, all of the operations team. I mean, can you imagine the operations work involved in not only 88,000 people being in the stadium, but the media connections, all the people who were coming just to be in town, even though they may not necessarily be going to ball games. So there's all of that. There's the media relations side of this, and it just goes on and on and on. So it's an amazing thing to be a part of something that's so complicated and yet comes off so well Saturday after Saturday after Saturday. They're so good at what they do, they make it look easy. And so the coolest part for me is being part of that, team.
I have a random connection I just made. So, the Auburn softball announcer, super, I don't know, opera-ish voice, kind of sounds like he's British, but he's not really British. It's just that Americanish opera voice. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
What's his name? Oh, I can't place my finger on his name, though.
Yeah, I am terrible with names.
That's okay.
I think there may be different people at different times, but...
So my brother actually plays football here, down here in Georgia, and I actually call the games.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any advice for him?
Oh.
Not for him. For me. Sorry, for me.
For him.
Sorry.
He'll take the advice too, though. What do you got?
But before you answer, I will say Mark Aston has said it. Because, Mark Aston also does the voice for Mark Aston does the PA announcing for Walton High School.
Mm-hmm.
Local high school down here in Georgia, and he said that he does what you do. We're would you, if I remember correctly, he said the way you make the calls, you don't do all detailed. You do it very short and sweet and whatnot. And he said he said he does what you do and short and sweet and all that. So anyways, like I said, so I'm going to stop. Do you have what I'm going to say? Sorry, my question is, do you have any advice for me to follow in your footsteps, to be a good announcer?
To do what I do?
Yeah.
The main thing is to make sure you know how to pronounce the names. That's the number one thing. make sure you understand the game, which you do. That's certainly not a problem. I am sure you know much more about football than I do. But it's being prepared. It's knowing, like with the reads that we do, with all of that is prepared ahead of time. So it's making sure that I'm familiar with the reads and what to say and how to say it. There's practicing that I do. For example, let's say there's a 2:30 game on Saturday morning, probably about 7:30 in the morning. I'll be sitting at my dining room table, just running through the script to make sure that I'm familiar with it and saying things out loud, because it's different when you read it compared to when you say it. You have to say it so you know how it's going to come out. So it's all of that preparation. It's knowing as much as I can about the other team, who the players are, who the quarterback, especially who's going to be touching the ball, because I tend to focus more on the offense and Eric tends to focus a little more on the defense, identifying who's made the tackle. So it's that preparation going in. And then once the game starts, it's being focused on the action on the field. And again, with the Auburn approach is to be neutral. So primarily what I'm saying is, who carried the ball or who caught the pass, who made the tackle, how many yards were gained is 3rd and 3 from the 38. And that's it. That's all that I say. And just kind of take that approach one play at a time. So I guess the key to success, as I see it, is preparation and also experience. I didn't start my announcing career as the stadium announcer at Jordan-Hare. I started my announcing career as a student in WEGL. And that thing led to another thing that led to another thing that eventually led to where I am now. So, get as much experience as you can, record everything you do and go back and listen to it. And critique yourself and notice what you're doing right and keep doing it. Notice what you want to improve on and keep working on that. I think it's helpful to listen to others, not to copy them because you have to have your own style and your own voice, but maybe to learn, okay, they're doing this, they're taking this approach and I like that. How can I incorporate that into what I do? But again, make it not to copy what they do, but to just get ideas, to get a seed for an idea that you can then make into your own.
So I have a observation. Your like voice sounds like way different than your like announcer voice.
Yeah, so, it does. People say that a lot to me, like, "Wow, you don't sound the same." But I would sound kind of odd if I talk that way all the time because especially public address announcing, it's so big and so bold. That's not really a natural way of speaking. Like if you have a conversation with Andy Burcham, when you talk to Andy, if it's just Andy and me having lunch together talking, he sounds exactly the same when you have a conversation with him as he does on the radio, because that radio call is very conversational, especially in the way that he does it. That's one thing that makes him so good. So he sounds the same way the entire time. But since announcing is a little more bold and, pushing out the voice, it's not a conversational style. So yeah, I do sound a little different in regular conversation.
So I have a question, and then I want to do a little, and then I have a little challenge for you. So my question is, what were your thoughts? So like, what was going through your head after the prayer at Jordan-Hare and the kick six? Like,
yeah, that's the other question I get a lot. In fact, the way a lot of people say it is, how did you just not go totally crazy like everyone else in the stands? But it comes down to being a professional. Now, I want Auburn to win every game Auburn plays. But at the same time, when I sit down behind the microphone, I'm not there to be a fan. I'm there to do a job. And my job is to be a stadium announcer for everyone in the stands. And so I have to, take this neutral approach. I have to take this professional approach. So what happened, let's say for the kick six, what happened in that situation is Eric and I are sitting at the microphone and, see the kick. And from where I'm sitting, the angle that I had when it first went into the air, I thought, this has a chance. And then I saw that it was going to fall short. So, Chris Davis makes the catch in the back of the end zone and takes off running. And I could tell when he gets to about midfield, Cody Mandel, the punter, who was the holder on that particular play, tries to make the tackle. And when he misses that tackle, you know it's going to be a touchdown. So, Chris Davis carries it on in. And I look at Eric, and what I'm about to say, is going to take a few seconds to say, but in the real world, it took about 2 seconds to do this. I looked at Eric and I said, that's a touchdown, right? Because I think like a lot of people in the stadium were thinking, okay, you can return
Can you do that?
a field goal attempt. So we're good, right?
It's a live ball, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I looked at him and I said, that's a touchdown, right? And he said, yes, that's a touchdown. And while I was saying that, I was scanning the field for flags. And I said, I don't see any flags on the field. And he said, there are no flags. So I hit the button on the microphone and I said, Chris Davis returns the field goal attempt for the Auburn touchdown. And then I turned the microphone off, and Eric and I were jumping up and down and hugging and screaming like everybody else was. Now, the funny thing about that is nobody heard what I said anyway, because it was so loud in the stadium.
What about
nobody heard a thing?
What about the prayer at Jordan Hare? Do you remember that?
It was
how did you make how okay? And then actually, no, I have a question. Do you remember in 2017 when Auburn was up 26-14 against Bama? And Auburn and Alabama was going to make that touchdown, was making a return, and he was heading for the end zone, but the Auburn guy stopped him. Do you remember who was stopped by whom in that scenario?
I do not.
Okay, and then so then how about the prayer at Jordan Hare? What was that like? How was that? How did you make that call?
Well,
I don't mean to put you on a spot, but
no, that's fine. It is similar, although it wasn't. Like the kick six, and I mean, it was a touchdown pass. So there wasn't that moment of he can do that, right? It was just realizing that he had caught the ball and scored the touchdown. So I forget exactly what I said in that, but just announce the call in a way like I would any other touchdown pass.
So
that one you can hear. I've seen some video. And that one you can hear a little. It was very, very loud, but you can hear it. But the kick six, you can't hear anything at all.
So very good. Now I want to play a little game I like to call Make the Call. So Brian Battie scores a rushing touchdown. How would you announce that in your announcer voice?
All right. Yeah. So see, now I have to do this. So all right. So let's say he's number 21, right? See, this is why I have a spotter, because a spotter tells me these things that I need to know, because I don't remember these things. That's why I have a spotting chart and a spotter. But it would be something like, I have to sit up straight so I can do this right. Number 21, Brian Battie carries around right in for the Auburn touchdown.
I love it.
Yes.
Is that the voice you're looking for? Is that it?
Yes. Okay. How about this one? Peyton Thorne said, Who? Wait. Oh, yeah. Wait, no. Peyton Thorne to Micah Riley for the Auburn touchdown. No, how about this one? Peyton Thorne throws a pass to Micah Riley for a touchdown.
Peyton Thorne's pass is complete to Micah Riley for the Auburn touchdown.
And then can I tell you a really cool story? So I had this group of me, my brother, my grandfather, my father, and a bunch of the guys we tailgate with. And my brother sends this video in the group about Micah Magnet Hands Riley. So a few days ago, I do some searching, and it just so happens that Micah Magnet Hands Riley in the YouTube video was the same Micah Riley who plays on the Auburn football team. And in that video, they mentioned that Micah Riley never passes up an opportunity to celebrate. So in the group, you know what I said? I said, hopefully he doesn't cost us the game. I'm looking at you, Ole Miss. Because you remember you remember a few years ago when Elijah Moore scores that touchdown against Mississippi State in Starkville to put Ole Miss ahead, and then the celebration he does was he
pretended to be a dog.
He pretended like he was a dog, doing the thing that dogs do on the fire hydrants and whatnot. So then they got a penalty, and guess what? They did miss the dang extra point. So that's how a celebration cost us the game. So that's why I said what I said about Micah Riley, because like the video said, Micah Riley doesn't miss an opportunity to celebrate. So I said, hopefully he doesn't cost us the game. I'm looking at you, Ole Miss. But anyways, Dad, do you have any other questions for Mr. Ric Smith?
I do. And this is just for my own benefit here. So I fancy myself a little bit of a stadium DJ. So while Parker calls the games at his for his brother, I do all the music and in between downs and all that sort of stuff and try to make it a fun atmosphere for the boys. How does that work at a big school like that, a big production like Auburn? Who's handling the music and all that?
The DJ is a guy named Ben, who's been with us now for a few years. I forget what year he began, but it's been a few years now. And Ben is terrific. In fact, he actually is now the DJ for the SEC championship game too. Oh, wow. So when I was in Atlanta, I was sitting down front where I am, and Ben was up behind me, spinning his records. And he is so good at recognizing the moment and the right song for the right moment to really keep the fans going. I mean, he's an artist in that regard. Now, until this year, at Jordan Hare, he would act where I sit. He was actually down in front of me. But beginning this past football season, he moved out to the student section. So he's sitting out there with the students now, which kind of gives it that whole student section vibe, everything going on with that. But yeah, it's been, and again, he's a vital part of this entire game day experience because the music adds so much to what's happening. And part of it is just this idea of the fans being energized. But if you think about a football game today, because of commercials, there are certain downtimes during the game. And there's a lot that's happening on the video board, of course. And there's a lot that's happening with the band because Auburn's band is terrific. And there's Ben doing what he does, spinning the music.
I do have a request for Ben. So so one of my new favorite songs is a popular song among college football, I believe, and it's called Mo Bamba. Do you know that song? Have you heard? I
may know it if I heard it, but I don't know the title.
Mo Bamba by Sheck Wes. I have a question. Do you think you could? Will you tell Ben? Will you put a word into Ben to request the playing of Mo Bamba a little bit more often?
All right, I will do that. I will let him know.
But I assume
I don't
Ben
know how the schools get away with playing that because it is you have to have the edited version and then you can't hear anything.
Well, it may be. Yeah, there are some edited songs that he will play.
All right, Parker, go ahead. I'm done.
So, by the way, it's so impressive that you get to announce the SEC championship. Hey, hey, I just realized something. Congratulations. And hold on. So the thing, I wanted to go this year. Like we had the opportunity, but we declined it. So maybe now that we know each other, we could. I've always wanted to see what it's like to call a championship game from a broadcast booth, or like a college football game, like what it's like to call a college football game from a broadcast booth. But anyway, I'm sorry. Yeah. I've been so greedy this episode. I'm so sorry, Mr. Smith. I just
no,
want
not
you to
at
know,
all. I'm having a wonderful time,
Mr. Smith. I just want you to know, I've idolized like public address announcers and radio announcers like for a very long time now. So I'm gonna tell you what, you are definitely one of my favorite guests.
Well, you're very kind. I'll tell you this: you were asking me, some of the things that meant the most to me in announcing. But one of my favorite memories announcing is the day that I met you, and I think it was your 8th birthday when you came up. And I didn't know you were coming. We had not met at that point, and I was in the back of the press box, and you came up, and we started talking. And I remember us walking through the press box together, going down to my booth to show you where I announced from, and just having the opportunity to meet you and your mom and dad and all of your family. And that's just one of my greatest memories. I still have the picture of us together standing in the PA booth.
I have 2 memories from that. Like, first one is I go up to Ben and I say, "Yo, Ben, can we play Seven Nation Army?" And then I'm looking through your script and I see blah 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 Parker Grelecki from Auburn, Alabama, and I say, "Oh no, that's not right. I'm not from Auburn, Alabama. I'm from Marietta, Georgia."
That's right. And then eventually Ben did play it though. Remember, like Ben played the song like during the game.
Yes. So hey, just tell Ben that I was the guy that asked to play Seven Nation Army on September 10th, and hopefully he'll know who I am. But anyways, so
I bet he will.
Moving on. So on this podcast, we are all sports fanatics. So the last question we ask, as a fan, what do you think is the all-time greatest moment in sports?
The kick six.
I mean, right?
No hesitation.
Hands down.
I have a feeling that
six.
Brian Harsin could never pull that off at Auburn.
All sports.
I'm sorry. I'm still a little bitter about Brian Harsin. I know.
He's bitter.
I know. Move the heck on. I know. Move the heck on. But let me tell you, there's been I've made a statement that Auburn fans are some of the most pessimistic people on the planet. And ever since, I saw that in full force after that New Mexico State loss. Like, give Hugh Freeze a few years. And my father was saying, so you remember Diego Pavia, the quarterback for New Mexico State?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Boy, that man's got an arm.
He had a great game.
My father
Sure does.
My father said that there's going to be a time where that man makes it to the NFL, and he's going to be playing, and people are going to be asking, where the heck did that man and go to college? And we're going to say New Mexico State, and they're going to be like,
it's one of those where he's going to come in as a backup and sling it around. People go, where did that guy go to school? And all Auburn fans are going to know exactly where that guy went to school.
And the thing is, he almost didn't play in that game because he was injured.
Yeah.
And then he comes in plays and did not look injured at all.
Didn't they bring a friggin' wide receiver in to play quarterback? Or no, Diego Pavia was the wide receiver. No, because wasn't there a guy who was another position that they used in their quarterback depth chart? Never mind.
There may have been. I'm not sure.
Never mind.
But just watching him play that day was remarkable. It was a game for the ages for him.
But anyways, thank you for your time, Mr. Smith.
Well, you're
thanks
welcome.
Again
Thank
for
you
your
so
time,
much
Mr.
for having
Smith.
me.
You are. I'll hear you in September. See what I did there? I won't see you in September. I'll hear you in September.
Well, I hope I get to see you too.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. War Eagle.
All right, fanatics. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of The Fan and Fanatic. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for all of your support. Don't forget to follow or subscribe, or whatever your podcast app says to do. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For my broadcast partner, Ryan Grelecki, this is Parker Grelecki saying, Game, Set, Match!